Skylar Chen had been flying since she was 16. First lessons in a Cessna with her father, then flight school, commercial license, and finally the freedom of being a private charter pilot. At 28, she had over 3,000 flight hours and a perfect safety record. She also had, apparently, been smuggling drugs across international borders for the past 6 months without knowing it. The realization hit at 35,000 feet, somewhere over the Caribbean, when turbulence shook the Gulfstream G650 hard enough to pop open the improperly secured cargo bay door. Sky had left the cockpit to check the disturbance, following protocol, expecting shifted luggage or loose equipment. Instead, she found herself staring at 20 carefully wrapped packages. Vacuum sealed and stamped with symbols she recognized from news reports about cartel operations. Cocaine, maybe 50 kilos, worth millions. Her hands went numb. Her perfect safety record, her spotless reputation, her entire career. All of it built on flights that had been carrying illegal cargo without her knowledge. "Everything all right back there?" The voice came through her headset. Her client, Mr. Volkov, calling from the passenger cabin. His accent was slight, Russian undertones wrapped in American polish. He'd been her best client for 6 months, always professional, always paid in cash, always requested Sky specifically for his flights, always last-minute routes to private airports in the Caribbean, Central America, Eastern Europe. She'd been so stupid. Sky forced her voice to stay steady. "Just checking some turbulence damage. Nothing serious." "Good. We'll be landing in 40 minutes, yes?" "Yes, 40 minutes to Grand Cayman." Where he'd offload this cargo, probably. Where she'd been helping him smuggle drugs for months, completely oblivious. Sky secured the cargo bay door and returned to the cockpit, her mind racing. Options: land as planned, then immediately report everything to the DEA. Or refuse to land, divert to a U.S. airport with federal presence, turn herself in as a cooperating witness. Either way, her career was over. Even if she proved ignorance, no one would hire a pilot who'd been unwittingly transporting cartel product for half a year. Her license would be investigated, probably suspended. Everything she'd worked for, gone. Her hands tightened on the controls. The Caribbean stretched out below, brilliant blue and deceptively peaceful. She could run. Land in Grand Cayman, drop Volkov and his cargo, then disappear, change her name, fly for some small operation in Southeast Asia or South America where no one asked questions, except Sky had never run from anything in her life. She activated the radio, switching to the frequency for the nearest U.S. Coast Guard station. Her finger hovered over the transmit button. "I wouldn't do that." Volkov's voice came through her headset, no longer courteous. "The frequency you just selected. Very unwise, Miss Chen." Sky's blood ran cold. "You can see my radio controls?" "I can see everything in my aircraft, including the cargo bay camera that recorded you discovering my merchandise." A pause. "We need to talk. Face to face. Continue to Grand Cayman as planned." "I'm calling the authorities." "And telling them what?" "That you've been smuggling cocaine for 6 months, that your flight logs show repeated trips to known trafficking waypoints, that you accepted cash payments and never asked questions." His voice remained calm, almost sympathetic. "Miss Chen, you're an excellent pilot, but from a legal perspective, you're already an accomplice." "I didn't know." "Prove it. Prove you didn't notice the unusual routes, the private airports, the cash payments, the last-minute flight plans. Prove you're not simply trying to negotiate immunity by pretending ignorance now that you've been caught." The sympathy in his voice made it worse. "I'm not threatening you, Sky. I'm explaining your situation. The moment you report me, you report yourself. And I have evidence showing you knew all along." "What evidence?" "I didn't know. But I have documents suggesting otherwise. Flight logs you signed, cargo manifests with your initials, recorded conversations where you agreed to transport sensitive materials for additional payment, all expertly fabricated but entirely believable. Enough to put you in federal prison while I disappear." Sky's hands shook on the controls. This couldn't be happening. She'd been set up. Meticulously, over months, turned into the perfect unwitting mule with documentation that would make her look guilty. What do you want? Land in Grand Cayman. We'll discuss your future employment. His tone returned to that professional courtesy. I've been very impressed with your skills, Miss Chen. You're punctual, discreet, talented. I'd like to continue our arrangement, this time with full transparency. You want me to knowingly smuggle drugs. I want you to fly routes for me with complete awareness of the cargo. In exchange, I'll pay you 5 times your current rate, provide legal protection, and ensure your family remains safe. A pause. Your mother in San Francisco, your younger brother at UCLA. They're lovely people. I'd hate for your legal troubles to affect them. The threat was velvet-wrapped, but unmistakable. Sky's vision blurred with rage and fear. You researched my family. I researched everything about you before hiring you. I don't leave things to chance, Miss Chen. You're the best pilot I've ever employed. Perfect safety record, excellent instincts, and until today, beautifully oblivious. Now you'll be the best pilot I've ever employed knowingly. I'll never. You will. Because the alternative is federal prison for you and investigation of your family's finances, which I can make look very suspicious. Your mother's mortgage, your brother's tuition payments, the cash you've been sending them from your flights, all of it will look like money laundering. His voice hardened slightly. I'm not asking, Miss Chen. I'm informing you of your new reality. You fly for me, or you lose everything. Choose. The Gulfstream's instruments glowed in the fading sunlight. Sky had never felt so trapped, so completely outmaneuvered. She'd walked into this cage willingly, unknowingly, and now the door had slammed shut. How long? She asked quietly. How long would I have to fly for you? Until you've proven your loyalty, absolutely. 2 years, perhaps. Maybe less if you're exceptional, which you are. He paused. Think of it as a contract, Miss Chen. You provide exclusive service. I provide protection and compensation. It's more honest than your previous arrangement, if nothing else. The previous arrangement where you lied to me, where I protected your innocence. There's a difference. Now you'll fly with eyes open, which makes you complicit, but also valuable. Pilots who know what they're carrying are more careful, more invested in success. Sky's mind raced through possibilities, none of them good. Report him and go to prison on fabricated evidence. Refuse and watch her family get destroyed by his manufactured investigation. Or accept and become what she'd never wanted to be, a criminal. If I agree, she said slowly, I want guarantees. Written protection for my family. Proof that they're not involved. Already prepared. You'll receive documents ensuring their complete separation from your activities. If anything happens to you, they're clean. I'm not a monster, Miss Chen. I'm a businessman. Businessmen don't threaten people's families. Businessmen protect their investments. You're an investment I've spent 6 months cultivating. I'm simply ensuring that investment continues to pay dividends. His tone softened slightly. I don't want to ruin your life, Sky. I want to employ you. There's a difference. You love flying. I'm giving you the opportunity to fly with better compensation and interesting routes. The cargo is simply part of the service. The cargo is illegal. The cargo is profitable, and profitability keeps everyone safe, including your family. A pause. We're beginning our descent. Make your decision. Land in Grand Cayman and accept my offer, or divert to a U.S. airport and accept the consequences. You have 5 minutes. Sky stared at the controls, at the endless blue below, at the instruments that had been her constant companions for years. Flying was freedom, or it had been. Now it felt like chains, but chains that kept her family safe, chains that kept her in the sky. She began the descent procedure, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Grand Cayman approach, this is November 74 Whiskey Romeo, requesting landing clearance. Behind her, through the headset, she could hear Volkov's satisfied exhale. Excellent choice, Miss Chen. Welcome to your new career. I promise it will be far more interesting than you imagine. Sky said nothing, focusing on the approach, on the runway appearing in the distance. She'd made her choice. She'd flown into the trap willingly, unknowingly. Now she'd have to learn to fly while caged, and somehow she'd find a way to break free. Grand Cayman's private terminal was exactly as Sky had seen it a dozen times before: sleek, modern, discreet, the kind of place where wealthy people conducted business without questions or customs interference. She'd been so naive. The landing was perfect, as always. Smooth touchdown, precise taxi to the designated hangar. Sky went through her post-flight checklist mechanically, her hands steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. Volkov appeared in the cockpit doorway before she'd finished. Up close, he was taller than she'd realized, maybe 6'2", with dark hair and pale blue eyes that seemed to see everything. He wore an expensive suit despite the Caribbean heat, looking more like a corporate executive than a drug smuggler. "Beautiful landing," he said. "You never disappoint." "What happens now?" Sky kept her voice level. Professional. If she was going to survive this, she needed to stay calm. "Now we discuss terms. Come." He gestured toward the passenger cabin. "Leave your phone in the cockpit, and your watch. It has GPS." Sky hesitated, then complied. Another cage closing. She followed him into the cabin, where two men waited, both armed, both watching her with the casual vigilance of professionals. "Sit." Volkov indicated a leather seat. "We have much to discuss." Sky sat, her back straight, maintaining the dignity that seemed like the only thing she had left. "You said you'd explain my new career." "Direct. I appreciate that." Volkov settled across from her, pulling out a tablet. "Let me properly introduce myself. Dmitri Volkov. I run a logistics operation moving pharmaceuticals through the Caribbean and Central America." Pharmaceuticals is a polite word, obviously. "You've been flying my routes for 6 months, 32 flights total, each one carrying product worth between $5 and $15 million. Sky's stomach turned. "That's not pharmaceuticals. That's business, supply and demand. I provide what people want through channels they can access. You facilitate transportation." He showed her the tablet, detailed flight logs, every route she'd flown for him, meticulously documented. "You've been perfect. 0 incidents, 0 delays, 0 questions, which is why I'm offering you continued employment rather than simply disposing of a witness." "How generous," Sky said bitterly. "It is, actually. Most people in your position don't get offered anything except silence. Permanent silence." His expression didn't change. "But you're too valuable to waste. Finding pilots with your skill and discretion is difficult. Finding ones who can be trusted with full knowledge is nearly impossible." "You don't trust me. You're blackmailing me." "I'm motivating you. There's a difference." He swiped to another screen. "Your family. Your mother, age 56, mortgage payment of $3,200 monthly. Your brother, age 22, UCLA tuition $47,000 per year. You've been sending them money from your flights, legitimate earnings, but easily misrepresented as proceeds from illegal activity." "You bastard!" "I'm thorough." He set down the tablet. "Here's what I'm offering. You continue flying for me. Same routes, but with full knowledge of cargo. Your payment increases from $15,000 per flight to $75,000 per flight. Cash or cryptocurrency, your choice. Your family receives financial protection. I'll ensure their debts are managed, their safety guaranteed." "In exchange for what? My soul?" "Your exclusivity. You fly only for me. You don't take other charters. You don't ask questions about cargo or destinations. And you certainly don't consider reporting our arrangement to authorities." His pale eyes held hers. "Do this for 2 years, and I'll release you with enough money to buy your own aircraft and start a legitimate charter business anywhere in the world. Do this perfectly, and your family never knows you were anything other than a successful private pilot." Sky's mind raced through the offer. $75,000 per flight. If she flew once a week, that was nearly $4 million a year. Enough to set her family up for life, buy her freedom, disappear if she needed to. "What if I get caught? What if the DEA or Coast Guard intercepts a flight?" "You won't. I have arrangements with appropriate officials, and I choose routes that avoid surveillance. In 6 months, you've never even been questioned. Because I'm exceptionally good at what I do." He leaned forward slightly. "But if the impossible happens, and you are intercepted, you follow protocol. You knew nothing. You were hired for a legitimate charter. You're shocked to discover illegal cargo. I have documentation to support that story, and lawyers who will ensure you face minimal consequences while I disappear. You've thought of everything. I always do. He pulled out a folder, slid it across to her. The documents I mentioned: legal protection for your family, financial arrangements, your employment contract. Read them. Sky opened the folder with shaking hands. The contracts were detailed, professional, terrifyingly legitimate-looking for an agreement to commit federal crimes. Her family's names appeared throughout: protections, provisions, guarantees that they'd be insulated from her activities. "This is insane," she whispered. "This is business." Dmitri stood, moved to the bar, poured 2 glasses of vodka. He offered her one. "I know this isn't what you wanted. You're a good person, Sky. I can see that. You became a pilot because you love freedom, because the sky makes you feel alive. I understand that. I'm a pilot myself. You're a smuggler. I'm both. They're not mutually exclusive." He sat back down, closer this time. "I learned to fly in the Russian Air Force 20 years ago. The freedom you feel, I feel it too. The difference is I found a way to make that freedom profitable. By trapping other people. By offering them opportunities. You could report me right now, Sky. Accept prison. Let your family suffer through investigation. Lose your license permanently. That's your freedom of choice." His voice softened. "Or you accept that you're already implicated, that fighting me destroys everyone you love, and that working for me is the least bad option available. That's pragmatism. That's coercion. That's reality." He sipped his vodka. "You walked into this situation innocently. I don't fault you for that. But innocence doesn't change facts. You've transported millions of dollars in cocaine. Your flight logs prove it. Whether you knew or not is irrelevant to federal prosecutors. They'll see an experienced pilot who should have known something was wrong and chose to ignore it." Sky wanted to argue, to insist on her innocence, but the cold logic was undeniable. She had signed manifests without checking cargo. She had accepted cash payments without questioning their source. She had flown suspicious routes without asking why. In her desire to build her business and help her family, she'd been willfully blind. "How did you choose me?" she asked quietly. "Out of all the pilots, why me? Your record, your reputation for discretion, your financial situation that made you motivated but not desperate enough to ask uncomfortable questions." Dmitri's expression was almost sympathetic. "And because when I met you the first time, I saw something. You're addicted to flying. You need it like oxygen. I knew if I gave you good planes and interesting routes, you'd focus on the flying and ignore everything else. You played me. I recruited you strategically. There's a difference." He finished his vodka. "And now I'm being honest with you because the playing is over. This is your life now, Sky. You fly my routes. You know what you're carrying. You accept the consequences if caught. In exchange, you get paid exceptionally well, and your family stays safe. For 2 years. For 2 years. Then freedom. Real freedom, with enough money to never have to compromise again." He stood. "Your first knowing flight is in 3 days. Aruba to Miami, 50 kilos, 300,000 in cash for you. The plane will be ready. You'll be ready. And Sky?" "What? Don't try to run. Don't try to report me. Don't try to be a hero." His voice lost all warmth. "I've been kind today because I value you. But if you betray me, kindness ends. Your family becomes leverage. Your freedom becomes a memory. And the sky you love becomes a prison you can see but never reach. Understand?" Sky met his eyes. Pale, cold, absolutely serious. She understood. "I understand." "Good." The warmth returned, artificial but practiced. "My people will drive you to your hotel. Rest, process, make peace with your new reality." He moved toward the exit, paused. "For what it's worth, I'm glad you chose to land here. You would have made a terrible prisoner, but you'll make an excellent pilot." After he left, Sky sat alone in the luxury cabin, surrounded by leather and mahogany and the trappings of wealth built on suffering. Through the window, she could see the Caribbean sunset painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. Beautiful. Free. Unreachable. She'd spent her life chasing the sky, believing it represented freedom. Now she understood. The sky was just another cage, wider than most, more beautiful than most, but still bounded by laws, both natural and criminal. And she'd just agreed to live in that cage for 2 years. Sky closed her eyes, feeling the weight of her choice settle on her shoulders like chains made of clouds, insubstantial but inescapable. 2 years. Then freedom, if she survived that long. 3 days later, Sky stood on the tarmac in Aruba, staring at the Gulfstream G650 that would carry her first knowing shipment, 50 kilograms of cocaine, worth approximately $5 million wholesale, enough to put her in federal prison for 20 years if caught. "Beautiful aircraft, yes?" Dmitri's voice came from behind her. He'd flown to Aruba personally to oversee her first run with full knowledge. "Top of the line, the best for my best pilot." "I'm not your best pilot. I'm your trapped pilot." Sky didn't look at him, kept her eyes on the plane. "There's a difference." "Not really. All my people are trapped in some way. Money, loyalty, fear, ambition. Everyone serves someone, Sky. You're just more honest about resenting it." He moved to stand beside her. "Have you completed your pre-flight?" "Yes, everything's ready." "Good. I'll be flying with you today. Co-pilot. I want to observe how you handle a flight with full knowledge." He handed her a flight bag. "Your payment, 300,000 cash. Count it if you want." Sky took the bag, heavy with currency. More money than she'd ever held. Blood money. "I trust it's accurate." "Learning already. Good." Dmitri gestured toward the plane. "Shall we?" The flight to Miami should have been routine. 2 hours, clear weather, familiar route. But every minute felt different, knowing what was in the cargo hold. Sky found herself checking instruments obsessively, scanning for Coast Guard vessels, watching radar for any aircraft that might be law enforcement. "Relax," Dmitri said from the co-pilot seat. "You're flying like someone with a guilty conscience. That's how you get noticed." "I am someone with a guilty conscience." "Then hide it better. You've flown this route before. Fly it the same way. Confident, professional, routine. The moment you act nervous, anyone watching will wonder why." He adjusted his headset. "Tell me what you're thinking right now." "I'm thinking I'm a criminal." "You were a criminal 6 months ago. You just didn't know it." He checked the navigation display. "What else?" "I'm thinking about how many lives this cargo will destroy. How many addictions, overdoses, families torn apart." Sky's hands tightened on the controls. "I'm thinking I'm contributing to that destruction for money. And I hate myself for it." "Good." Dimitri's response surprised her. Never lose that. The moment you stop caring about the consequences is the moment you become truly dangerous. To yourself and others. He looked at her directly. "I know what I am, Sky. I know the damage my business causes. I don't pretend it's noble or victimless. But I also know that if I don't supply the demand, someone else will. Someone probably worse. That's not absolution." "No, it's explanation. There's a difference." He returned his attention to the instruments. "You want to know why I'm good at this? Why I've survived 15 years in a business where most people don't last 5. "Why?" "Because I never pretend it's anything other than what it is. I'm not a revolutionary or a businessman or a freedom fighter. I'm a criminal who's found a profitable niche and the discipline to manage it carefully. No illusions, no delusions. Just reality." He paused. "You'll survive this 2 years if you accept the same thing. You're a criminal now. Not by choice, but by circumstance. Accept it, manage it, survive it. And then you get your freedom. Clean break, fresh start, enough money to never compromise again, but only if you're smart and careful." He pointed to the radar. "Coast Guard cutter, 20 miles east. See it?" Sky checked the display. "Yes. Should we alter course?" "No. Altering course suggests we have something to hide. We maintain heading, maintain speed, act like a legitimate charter flight because that's what we appear to be on paper. Confidence at Sky. It's the best camouflage." The cutter passed without incident. So did the flight. 2 hours later, Sky was landing at a private airport in the Everglades, watching as Dmitri's people offloaded the cargo with practiced efficiency. "Perfect flight," Dmitri said as they completed shutdown procedures. "See? You're a natural at this." "I'm a natural at flying, not at being a criminal." "You're a natural at both. You just don't want to admit it." He pulled out his phone, showed her a notification. "Your mother's mortgage payment just cleared. Paid in full for the year. Your brother's tuition for next semester, also handled. Your payment for services rendered." Sky stared at the screen, feeling sick. This is what $300,000 in blood money bought, her family's financial security. "I didn't ask you to pay their bills." "I know, but I'm investing in your loyalty. Hard to betray someone who's taking care of your family." He pocketed the phone. "Next flight is in 5 days, Cartagena to Nassau. Another 50 kilos, another 300,000. By the end of the month, you'll have made more money than you made all last year legitimately." "I don't want it." "You need it, whether you want it or not." Dmitri stood, stretched. "Come on, I'm buying you dinner. We need to discuss operational security and protocol." Dinner was at a restaurant in Coral Gables, expensive, discreet, the kind of place where criminals and businessmen were indistinguishable. Dmitri ordered in Russian to the server, who clearly knew him, then switched back to English. "You did well today," he said. "Most pilots fall apart on their first knowing run. You stayed calm, professional, impressive." "I was terrified the entire time." "But you didn't show it. That's what matters." He sipped his vodka. "Tell me something, Sky. If you could go back 6 months, knowing what you know now, would you take that first flight?" "No." "Honest, but not smart." He leaned forward. "If you hadn't taken those flights, you'd still be struggling with debt, your family would be drowning financially, and your career would be stagnant. Now you have the opportunity to fix all of that in 2 years. So perhaps the question isn't whether you'd take the flights, it's whether you're strong enough to survive the consequences." "Is that what you tell yourself? That you're giving people opportunities?" "I tell myself I'm surviving in a world that doesn't reward virtue, and I'm helping others survive with me." His expression hardened slightly. "You think I'm a monster?" "Maybe I am. But I'm a monster who keeps his word. Work for me honestly for 2 years, and I'll set you free. Betray me, and I'll destroy everything you love. It's simple, clean, and more honest than most relationships. This isn't a relationship, it's extortion. It's employment under duress, which, if you look at most jobs honestly, isn't that different from standard capitalism. You sell your labor under threat of poverty. I'm just more explicit about the threat." He smiled without warmth. "The only difference is I'm paying you better." Sky wanted to argue, to maintain moral superiority, but exhaustion was setting in. The adrenaline crash from the flight, the weight of what she'd done, the reality of her situation, all of it pressing down. "What if I can't do this?" she asked quietly. "What if I break? Make a mistake?" "You won't." Dimitri's certainty was absolute. "Because you're an addict, Sky. Not to drugs, to flying, to the freedom of being in the air, to the control of having a machine respond perfectly to your commands. You need it, and I'm the only one offering it to you now. That need will keep you sharp, keep you careful, keep you flying perfectly. You're using my passion against me. I'm leveraging your greatest strength. There's a difference." He signaled for the check. "I have another question. When you're flying, really flying, when you're in that moment of perfect control 35,000 feet up, does it matter what's in the cargo hold? Or is the flying itself what matters?" Sky wanted to say the cargo mattered, that she couldn't separate the act from the consequences. But the truth was more complicated. When she was flying, when her hands were on the controls, and the world spread out below, and the engines responded to her slightest touch, in those moments, nothing else existed. She'd always loved that about flying, the way it demanded complete presence, complete focus, the way everything else faded. Now that gift felt like a curse, because it meant she could fly perfectly while carrying poison, could lose herself in the aviation while people suffered from what she transported. "You already know the answer," she said bitterly. "I do. But I wanted to hear you admit it." Dmitri stood, left cash on the table. "You're going to be an excellent pilot for me, Sky. Not because you're evil or heartless, but because you love flying more than you hate yourself for doing this. That's not weakness. That's survival. That's damnation. That's life. We're all damned in our own ways. You're just more aware of yours than most people." He headed for the exit, paused. "Next flight is Tuesday. Be ready." "And Sky?" "What?" "Stop punishing yourself. You made the only choice that kept everyone you love safe. That's not something to be ashamed of. That's something to respect, even if it costs you." After he left, Sky sat alone at the table, surrounded by wealth and white tablecloths and the trappings of respectability. Her phone buzzed, a text from her mother thanking her for the mortgage payment, saying she didn't know how Sky had managed it, but she was grateful. Sky closed her eyes, felt tears threatening for the first time since Grand Cayman. She'd saved her family by becoming a criminal. She'd kept flying by accepting chains. And the worst part? Dmitri was right. When she'd been in the air today, cargo hold full of cocaine, flight path taking her over beautiful blue water, she'd felt free. That was the real trap. Not the blackmail or the money or the threats. The trap was that she'd found freedom in the cage, and she didn't know if she'd ever escape it. 6 weeks, 14 flights, $4,200,000 in cash sitting in cryptocurrency accounts Dmitri had set up for her. Sky had become exactly what she'd never wanted to be, a criminal who was good at her job. "You're early," Dmitri said, finding her in the hangar at dawn. She'd arrived an hour before their scheduled flight to Panama City, unable to sleep, needing to be near the aircraft. Couldn't sleep. Conscience or excitement? He set down 2 coffees, offered her one. A routine they'd developed over the past weeks. Pre-flight coffee, discussions about routes and weather, the careful dance of 2 people forced into partnership. Does it matter? Yes. Conscience means you're still fighting this. Excitement means you're accepting it. He studied her face in the dim hangar lights. Which is it? Sky. She wanted to lie, to maintain that she hated every moment, but something had shifted over the past weeks. The flights had become not easier, exactly, but more natural. The fear had faded into routine. And worse, she'd started to appreciate the complexity of what Dmitri did, the careful route planning that avoided detection, the intricate timing that synchronized with weather patterns and law enforcement schedules, the precision required to move millions of dollars in product without leaving traces. It was like flying itself, technical skill combined with instinct and experience. "Both," she admitted quietly. "I hate what we're doing, but I love how we're doing it. That makes me a terrible person, doesn't it?" "It makes you a realist." Dmitri moved closer. And Sky noticed, not for the first time, how he seemed to fill space without trying. Tall, broad-shouldered, with that controlled presence of someone always aware of his surroundings. You're starting to see the artistry in it, the way all the pieces fit together. That's not moral failure. That's appreciating complexity. Complexity that destroys lives. Everything complex destroys something. Capitalism destroys communities. Technology destroys privacy. Progress destroys tradition. You can't create without destroying. He sipped his coffee. We're not special in that regard. We're just more honest about the destruction we cause. That's a convenient philosophy. It's survival philosophy, and it's kept me alive for 15 years in a business where most people die or disappear within 5. He set down his cup. Today's flight is different. I need to tell you before we're in the air. Sky's instincts prickled. Different how? We're not carrying product. We're carrying a person. He pulled out his phone, showed her a photo of a young woman, maybe 25, with dark hair and terrified eyes. Maria Salazar. She witnessed a cartel execution in Medellin. The cartel wants her dead. Her family contacted me to get her out. You're rescuing someone? I'm relocating an asset who has valuable testimony. She'll go into witness protection in the U.S., testify against the Valdez cartel, and in exchange, I get immunity on several pending investigations. He pocketed the phone. Not all my business is drugs, Sky. Sometimes I move people. Usually people running from worse situations than the one I'm offering. So you're using her testimony to protect yourself. I'm giving her a chance to survive while benefiting from her cooperation. Yes. He watched her process this. Does that change how you feel? That we're saving someone today instead of transporting poison? Sky didn't know how to answer. For 6 weeks, she'd been telling herself she was a victim, forced into criminal activity. But if Dmitri also did things like this, moved people away from death, facilitated justice even if for selfish reasons, then the moral clarity she'd been clinging to became muddier. I don't know what to feel anymore, she said honestly. Good. Certainty is dangerous. People who are certain make stupid mistakes. He handed her the flight plan. Maria will be terrified. Be kind to her. She's been through hell. The flight to Panama City was smooth until Maria boarded. She was smaller than her photo suggested, with bruises barely concealed by makeup and hands that shook as she fastened her seatbelt. ¿Hablas español? Sky asked gently. Sí, un poco English. Maria's voice was barely audible. You're safe now, I promise. We'll have you in Miami in 3 hours. Sky squeezed her hand. I'm Sky. I'm your pilot. I won't let anything happen to you. Something in Maria's eyes shifted. Gratitude, maybe, or desperate hope. Thank you. During the flight, Sky found herself checking on Maria more than necessary, bringing her water, offering food, making sure she was comfortable. This was different from transporting drugs. This felt like actually helping someone. You're good with her, Dmitri observed, watching from the cockpit doorway. Natural compassion. I didn't expect that. Just because you forced me into being a criminal doesn't mean I've lost my humanity? No, but it means you're rediscovering it in unexpected places. He leaned against the frame. You thought you were a good person because you followed laws, flew clean routes, did everything right. Now you're breaking laws, flying dirty routes, doing everything wrong. But you're still showing compassion, still caring about people. What does that tell you? That morality is more complicated than I thought. That morality is about choices within circumstances, not circumstances themselves. You can't choose your situation right now, but you can choose how you behave within it. His voice softened. You chose to comfort a terrified woman. That matters more than the fact you're being paid to fly her. Sky wanted to argue, to maintain that intention mattered as much as action, but Maria's grateful smile when Sky checked on her again suggested otherwise. The woman didn't care why Sky was being kind, only that she was. They landed in Miami without incident. Federal agents met them at the private terminal. Officially, Dmitri had no idea they'd be there. Unofficially, he'd arranged the entire thing. Maria was taken into protective custody, but not before hugging Sky tightly. Gracias, she whispered. You saved my life. I just flew the plane. You did more. You treated me like person, not cargo. That matters. Maria pulled back, tears in her eyes. Thank you. After she left, Sky stood on the tarmac feeling something. Not pride, exactly, not redemption. But a sense that maybe she wasn't entirely lost yet. Don't, Dmitri said, reading her expression. Don't convince yourself that moving one person makes up for moving tons of drugs. It doesn't. The math doesn't work that way. Then why do it? Why help her if it doesn't balance out? Because balance is a myth. We do what we do, and sometimes we get opportunities to do something slightly less terrible. We take those opportunities not because they absolve us, but because they remind us we're still capable of humanity. He moved closer, his expression serious. You helped Maria because you're a good person in a bad situation. I helped her because it benefited me legally. Neither of us are heroes here, Sky. Don't pretend otherwise. You won't even let me have this one good moment? I won't let you lie to yourself. That's how people break in this business. They start believing there's something they're not. Robin Hood criminals, necessary evils, any of those comforting narratives. His hand came up to her face, unexpected tenderness in the gesture. You're a pilot who got trapped into smuggling. You're making the best of a terrible situation, that's all. Don't romanticize it. Sky should have stepped back from his touch, should have maintained professional distance. But something had shifted between them over these 6 weeks. The initial captor-captive dynamic had evolved into something more complicated. Partnership, maybe, or recognition. Two people trapped in situations neither had fully chosen, finding unexpected understanding. "What are we doing, Dmitri?" she asked quietly. "Really?" "Surviving. Together." His thumb traced her jawline. "I trapped you into this. I know that. But somewhere between Grand Cayman and today, you stopped being just my pilot. You became—" He paused, as if the admission cost him something. "Someone I trust. Someone I rely on beyond just technical skill." That sounds dangerously close to caring. It is dangerous. For both of us. But he didn't step back. "I don't do relationships, Sky. Can't afford them in my business. But you're different. You see what I do, understand the complexity, hate it, and appreciate it simultaneously. You're the only person who knows all of me, and hasn't either run away or tried to use it against me. Maybe because I can't run, and using it against you destroys me too. Maybe. Or maybe because you understand something most people don't, that people are more than their worst choices, that circumstances matter. That survival sometimes requires compromise." His other hand found her waist, pulling her marginally closer. "These 6 weeks, flying with you, watching you adapt and struggle and ultimately survive, I've started to what? To want things I can't have, shouldn't want." His voice dropped lower. "You're supposed to be my employee, my pilot, someone I control through fear and necessity. But you're becoming something else. Something that makes this business more complicated and more bearable simultaneously." Sky's heart hammered. This was wrong on every level. Stockholm Syndrome, power imbalance, captor falling for captive. But she couldn't deny the pull between them, the way understanding had grown into something deeper. "Dmitri, I know all the reasons this is impossible. But I need you to understand something." His forehead touched hers, his breath warm. "In 2 years, I promised you freedom. I keep my promises. But Sky, if you choose to stay after those 2 years, if you decide this life, this partnership, this, whatever this is becoming, if you choose it freely, without coercion, don't." Sky pulled back slightly. "Don't make this about choice. You took my choices away. You can't give them back and pretend it makes us equal." "I know, but in 2 years, your debt is paid. Your family's protected permanently, and you'll have the freedom to walk away or—" He stopped. "Or what?" "Or stay. Not as my employee, as my partner, truly." His expression was vulnerable in a way she'd never seen. "I'm not asking now. I'm telling you that in 2 years, that option will exist. Choose freedom if you want it. But know that the choice to stay will also be there, and I'll respect whichever you choose." Before Sky could respond, his phone rang. He checked it, his expression shifting back to business mode instantly. "The Valdez cartel knows we moved Maria. They're not happy." He was already walking toward the car. "We need to move. Now. They might hit the airport." Sky followed, her mind reeling from the conversation, from Maria, from everything. As they sped away from the terminal, she couldn't help wondering, in 2 years, would she even remember what freedom felt like? Or would she have become so adapted to the cage that she wouldn't know how to leave it? The Valdez cartel's retaliation came 48 hours later, during what should have been a routine flight from San Juan to Key West. Sky was alone in the Gulf Stream. Dmitri had stayed behind to handle the political fallout from Maria's testimony. It was supposed to be a simple cargo run, 50 kilos, familiar route, clear weather. She should have known better than to trust routine. The first sign of trouble came at cruising altitude when Sky noticed an aircraft on her radar that shouldn't be there. Small, fast, matching her course and speed. Not Coast Guard, not DEA. Something else. She reached for the encrypted phone Dmitri had given her. "I've got a tail. Single-engine aircraft, staying just outside visual range." "Evade them." Dmitri's voice was tense. "Immediately. Don't let them get close enough to—" The line went dead as the Gulfstream's electrical systems flickered. EMP burst. Military grade. Sky's training took over instantly. She switched to backup systems, killed the transponder, dove hard and fast toward the cloud deck below. The smaller aircraft followed, faster and more maneuverable than her heavy jet. They weren't trying to shoot her down. They were trying to force her down, make her land somewhere they controlled. Not happening. Sky pushed the Gulfstream through maneuvers it wasn't designed for, trading altitude for speed, using clouds for cover, pulling every trick she'd learned in flight school and a few she'd improvised over the years. The pursuing aircraft was good, but Sky was better. She'd been flying since she was 16. This was her element, her domain. And nobody, cartel, government, or otherwise, was taking that from her. The chase lasted 20 minutes. 20 minutes of high G-turns, emergency descents, near misses with commercial air traffic. 20 minutes where Sky flew like her life depended on it, because it absolutely did. Finally, she managed to slip into a weather system, using the turbulence and low visibility to disappear from the pursuer's radar. She altered course, flying low over the water, heading for an emergency airstrip Dmitri had showed her weeks ago. Emergency landing protocols, radio silence, pure survival flying. She touched down on a barely maintained strip in the Bahamas, her hands shaking on the controls for the first time in weeks. The moment the engines shut down, she was out of the cockpit, checking for damage, verifying the cargo was intact. That's when she saw it, a tracking device attached to the landing gear, small, sophisticated, nearly invisible. They'd tagged her aircraft. The Valdez cartel had been watching her every move. "Clever girl." The voice came from behind her. Sky spun to find 3 men emerging from the tree line, weapons visible. "You fly better than we expected, but you can't hide from us. You tagged my plane. We tag all of Volkov's assets. You've been moving our product, our routes, our territory. That makes you ours as much as his." The leader, mid-40s, scarred, with cold, dead eyes, smiled without warmth. "Volkov took something from us. The girl, Maria. Now we take something from him. You." Sky's mind raced through options. 3 armed men, remote location, no backup. The plane was too damaged from the chase to take off again immediately. "Volkov will come for me. We're counting on it. You're bait, pretty pilot. He cares about you more than he should. We saw how he looks at you, how he trusts you with his operations. Kill you, and we hurt him. Take you, and we own him. You're making a mistake. I'm just a pilot. You're his pilot, his trusted asset, the woman he's been protecting for 3 months like she's precious." The man moved closer. "You're worth more than any shipment. You're worth Volkov's empire, and he'll trade it for you." Before Sky could respond, her phone, the encrypted one, rang. The cartel leader pulled it from her pocket, answered on speaker. "Dmitri Volkov, we have your pilot." "I know. I've been tracking the situation." Dmitri's voice was controlled, but Sky could hear the fury underneath. "If you hurt her, you'll what? You're in Miami. We're in the Bahamas. By the time you get here, she'll be on a boat to Colombia, then Mexico, then wherever we want to keep her." The man's hand grabbed Sky's arm, yanking her closer to the phone. "Want to say goodbye to your boss, Princessa?" Sky met the man's eyes with more courage than she felt. "Don't negotiate with them, Dmitri. Don't you dare trade anything for me." "Sky, I mean it. Whatever they want, it's not worth—" The man backhanded her. Sky's vision exploded with stars, blood filling her mouth. She stayed upright through sheer stubbornness. "Don't touch her again." Dmitri's voice had gone deadly quiet, the tone that meant someone was about to die. "Not if you want to live through the next hour." "Big threats from a man who's helpless. Here's the deal, Volkov. You give us your Miami routes, your Caribbean contacts, and $2 million in cash. We give you your pilot back, mostly intact." "Done. All of it. Name the exchange point." "Dmitri, no." Sky struggled against the grip on her arm. "It's a trap. They'll kill me anyway and take everything." "I know." His voice softened slightly. "But I'm not losing you, Sky. Not like this. Not ever." The cartel leader laughed. Sentimental. That's your weakness, Volkov. You actually care about this one. Makes you predictable. It makes me motivated. You have 1 hour to get her on a boat to the coordinates I'm sending. If she's not there in 60 minutes, unharmed, I start killing everyone in your organization, starting with your brother in Cartagena. You're bluffing. Try me. You think I'm a logistics operator who avoids violence? Ask around about what happened to the last person who threatened someone I valued. Ask about Santiago Cruz. Ask about the Medellin incident 5 years ago. Dmitri's voice was ice and death. I gave Santiago 3 chances to return what he'd taken. He laughed at me. I sent his widow pieces of him for 6 months. The silence that followed suggested the cartel leader knew the story. 1 hour, Dmitri repeated. Coordinates incoming. She arrives unharmed, you get everything you asked for. She arrives damaged, I erase your bloodline from history. Choose. The call ended. The cartel leader stared at the phone, then at Sky, calculating. He's serious. He's always serious. Sky's voice was steady despite the fear. And he keeps his promises. Both kinds. Then we'd better keep you pristine. For now. He shoved her toward the boat. Move! The boat ride was 30 minutes of terror. Sky's mind raced through escape scenarios. None of them good. Jump overboard and hope she could swim to shore before they shot her? Try to overpower 3 armed men with no weapons? Wait for Dmitri and hope his rescue attempt didn't end with both of them dead. They arrived at a small marina just as sunset painted the sky in violent oranges and reds. The cartel leader's phone rang. We're here. Where's our payment? Check the duffel bag under the dock. 2 million cash. The routes and contacts are on a USB drive in the bag. Everything you asked for. Dmitri's voice came through the speaker. Now let her go. Let us verify the information first. No, she walks free now, or the deal is off and I start the killing. The tension stretched like wire. Finally, the cartel leader nodded to his men. Let her go! Sky was shoved toward the dock, her legs unsteady. She stumbled forward, looking for Dmitri, seeing no one. Then she heard it. The distinctive sound of a helicopter rotor. She looked up to see a Black Hawk descending fast, doors open, armed men inside. Run! Dmitri's voice came from somewhere. Sky, run! Sky ran. Behind her, the cartel men opened fire. The helicopter's gunners returned it. She dove behind a stack of crates as bullets tore through the marina, splinters exploding around her. Then Dmitri was there, appearing from behind a building, grabbing her arm, pulling her toward cover. Stay down. You came yourself? That's insane. You're my pilot. My responsibility. He pulled her closer as an explosion rocked the marina. I'm not losing you to these animals. The routes you gave them, fake. The money's counterfeit, and the USB drive contains a virus that will destroy their financial records. He pulled out a gun, returned fire at a cartel soldier. I told you, Sky. I keep my promises, including the promise to protect you. The firefight lasted 5 minutes. When it ended, the 3 cartel soldiers were dead, and Dmitri's team was securing the area. Sky sat on the dock, shaking with adrenaline crash, blood from her split lip staining her flight suit. Dmitri knelt in front of her, his hands gentle as he examined her face. Did they hurt you? Beyond this? No. But Dmitri, they said they've been watching us for weeks. They knew about us, about how we. I know. They saw what I tried to hide, that you're not just an asset anymore. That you've become, he stopped, jaw tight, that you matter, more than you should. You risked everything for me, your operation, your contacts, your safety. I'd risk it all again. His thumb gently wiped blood from her lip. That's the problem, Sky. You were supposed to be a trapped pilot, someone I controlled through necessity. But somewhere in the past 3 months, you stopped being a prisoner and became something I can't afford to lose. Dmitri, I love you. The words came out raw, unplanned. I didn't mean to, didn't want to. But watching you adapt to this life, seeing your strength, your compassion even in darkness, the way you fly like you're dancing with the sky, I fell in love with you. And today, when they took you, I realized I'd burn my entire empire down before I'd let them keep you. Sky stared at him. This dangerous man who'd trapped her, who'd forced her into crime, who'd just orchestrated a military-style rescue operation because he couldn't bear to lose her. That's not love. That's obsession. It's both. His forehead touched hers. And I know it's wrong on every level, but it's true. The safe house was in the Bahamas, a compound on a private island that Dmitri owned through layers of shell corporations. Sky spent the first night in a haze of adrenaline crash and medical attention. A doctor stitched her split lip, checked for concussion, prescribed rest. Dmitri never left her side. "You should sleep," he said, as dawn broke over the ocean. They sat on the balcony, Sky wrapped in a blanket, despite the warm air, still shaking occasionally from the aftermath. Can't. Every time I close my eyes, I see guns and blood, and... She stopped. "I almost died today." "I know. I'm sorry." His hand found hers, squeezed. "This is my fault. I should have seen the tail, should have had better security protocols, should have never forced me into this life in the first place." Sky turned to look at him. "That's the real issue, isn't it? You trapped me, and now you're in love with your prisoner. That's not romance, Dmitri. That's Stockholm Syndrome with extra steps. I know what it looks like." He didn't let go of her hand. "But it's more complicated than that. Yes, I forced you into this. Yes, the power dynamic is fundamentally wrong. But Sky, what we've become to each other over these months, the partnership we've built, the way we understand each other, that's real. However it started, whatever the circumstances, what I feel for you is real. And what I feel for you. How do I know that's real and not just survival instinct?" Sky pulled her hand away. "You control my life, my family's safety, my entire future. Maybe I've just convinced myself I care about you because the alternative is unbearable. Maybe, but I don't think so." Dmitri stood, moved to the railing. "You've had opportunities to betray me. Today, when the cartel had you, you could have told them everything about my operations, bought your freedom with information. You didn't. You told me not to negotiate, not to trade anything for you. Because I didn't want them to win. Because you were protecting me. Even when you thought you might die, you were trying to protect me from making a bad deal." He turned back to face her. "That's not Stockholm Syndrome, Sky. That's choice. However limited your circumstances, you chose me in that moment." Sky wanted to argue, to maintain that she had no real choices. But the truth was more complicated. In the 3 months since Grand Cayman, she'd had small choices, ways to sabotage flights, to leave clues for authorities, to subtly resist. She hadn't taken any of them. Not just because of threats to her family, but because, God help her, she'd started to care about Dmitri, about his careful intelligence, his unexpected moments of vulnerability, the way he flew with pure joy despite the darkness of his business. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. "The Valdez cartel knows about us. Other organizations will find out. You said it yourself. Caring about someone is a weakness in your world." "Then I'll be weak, for you." He returned to sit beside her. "I'm dismantling the most dangerous parts of my operation. The drug routes, the high-risk smuggling. I'm transitioning to legitimate aviation business with some gray area activities that won't put you at risk." "You're retiring? Because of me." "I'm adapting. Because you've shown me there's more to life than just surviving and accumulating power. Because I want a future where you're not in constant danger because of me." His hand found hers again. "The 2 years I promised you. I'm cutting it to 6 months. After that, you're free, completely. Your family's protected permanently. You'll have enough money to start any business you want, and you'll owe me nothing. Why? Because I don't want you to stay out of obligation or fear. I want you to stay because you choose to, and you can't make that choice unless you're truly free first." His expression was vulnerable in a way she'd never seen. "In 6 months? Walk away if you want. I'll respect that. But Sky, if you choose to come back, if you decide you want this partnership, this life, this whatever we are together, I'll be here, building something better, something worthy of you." Sky stared at him. This man who'd trapped her and was now offering her freedom. What if I walk away and never come back? Then I'll live with the loss and know I did the right thing by letting you go. You deserve the choice I took from you, Sky. You deserve freedom, real freedom, even if it means losing you. That's not very crime lord of you. You've made me less of a crime lord and more of a man. He smiled slightly. It's inconvenient, but not unwelcome. The next 6 months were surreal. Dmitri kept his word. Operations shifted toward legitimate charter services, air cargo transport, aerial survey work. Still some gray area activities, but nothing that risked federal charges. Sky flew routes that didn't require checking the cargo hold with dread. And slowly, with the immediate danger lessening, she had space to examine her feelings without survival instinct clouding everything. She'd expected to hate Dmitri once fear receded, expected to realize her attraction was just trauma response, her care for him just Stockholm Syndrome. Instead, with clarity came a more complicated truth. She'd fallen in love with him, not because he'd trapped her, but despite it. She loved his intelligence, his unexpected kindness to people like Maria, the way he flew with pure freedom in his eyes. She loved how he listened when she talked about aviation, how he trusted her judgment, how he'd changed his entire operation because she'd asked him to consider the human cost. He wasn't a good man, but he was trying to be better. For her. And Sky realized something. She'd spent her life chasing freedom through flying, believing the sky meant escape from constraints. But real freedom wasn't about having no constraints. It was about choosing which ones you accepted. She could be free and alone, flying solo with no complications. Or she could choose Dmitri, complications and all, and build something together. The 6-month mark came on a Tuesday. Sky woke in her own apartment. Dmitri had moved her back weeks ago, giving her space, respecting boundaries. Her phone had a single message. 6 months. You're free. Whatever you decide, thank you for showing me there's more to life than survival. D. Sky sat on her balcony, coffee in hand, watching planes cross the sky above Miami. She'd spent months dreaming of this moment. Complete freedom. No obligations. Her life her own again. But freedom felt hollow, without purpose, without partnership. Without the man who'd trapped her and freed her and loved her through it all. She picked up her phone, typed a response. What time's our flight? His reply came immediately. You're coming back? I'm choosing to come back. There's a difference. There is. Are you sure? Sky looked at the sky, thought about everything she'd learned over these months, about morality and choice, about freedom and constraint, about how sometimes the people who trap us also teach us to fly higher than we ever could alone. I'm sure. Partners? Equals, always. She smiled, finished her coffee, and started packing. Not because she had to, but because she wanted to. The pilot who'd been trapped had found her route, not away from the cage, but through it, beyond it, into something she'd chosen freely. And sometimes, that was the greatest freedom of all. 1 year later, Skylar Chen stood on the tarmac beside a brand-new Gulfstream G700, painted in the colors of Volkov Aviation Services, a legitimate charter company that flew executives, medical transports, and humanitarian missions across the Americas. Mostly legitimate, anyway. She's beautiful, Sky said, running her hand along the fuselage. The aircraft bore her name on the side, Sky's route. She should be. I bought her for the best pilot I know. Dmitri came up behind her, arms wrapping around her waist, a gesture that had become natural over the past year, affectionate, possessive in the best way, chosen rather than forced. Best pilot or best partner? Sky leaned back against him. Both. Always both. He kissed her temple. Are you ready for today's flight? Medical supply run to Guatemala, then humanitarian aid to Honduras, then back to Miami. All above board, all legitimate, all boring. She turned in his arms. I love boring now. Who knew? You don't love boring. You love purposeful. He smiled. There's a difference. It was true. The past year had been a revelation. Dmitri had kept his word. The illegal operations had been systematically dismantled or transferred to others. Volkov Aviation Services was 95% legitimate now, with only the occasional gray area charter that Sky could refuse if it crossed her ethical lines. And she had refused. Twice. Both times, Dmitri had accepted her decision without argument, had turned down lucrative contracts because his partner, his equal, said no. That's what they were now. True partners. Sky handled all flight operations. Dmitri managed business development and logistics. Together, they'd built something that made money without destroying lives, that utilized their skills without requiring them to compromise their slowly rebuilding consciences. "I got a call this morning," Dmitri said, his tone shifting to business. "DEA wants to hire us. Long-term contract flying their agents and witnesses for protection relocations." "They want to hire the former drug smuggler and his pilot?" Sky raised an eyebrow. "They want to hire the aviation company that successfully transported Maria Salazar and has a perfect safety record. They don't know about my past. The man they'd be contracting with is Dmitri Volkov, legitimate businessman. My old identity is buried so deep even I can barely find it." He paused. "But I wanted to ask you first. Taking government contracts means increased scrutiny, background checks, more oversight. Are you comfortable with that?" This was what partnership meant now. Mutual decision-making, respect for each other's boundaries, actual choice in their direction. Will it put us at risk? Legally? No. I've been building the legitimate business for 2 years, since before I recruited you. Everything is clean, documented, defensible. The worst they'll find is that I pay very well and run a tight operation. Then yes. DEA contracts sound perfect. Helping protect witnesses, relocating people who need safety. That's what we should be doing. Sky smiled. Using our skills to actually save people instead of helping poison them. You've made me into a humanitarian. But Dmitri was smiling too. It's disturbing how much I don't hate it. That's because you were never the monster you pretended to be. You were just surviving the only way you knew how. She reached up to touch his face. We both were. He caught her hand, pressed a kiss to her palm. "I need to tell you something. About the 6 months." "The 6 months I was supposed to work for you?" "Yes. I told you that you'd be free after 6 months, that you could walk away." His expression turned serious. "But Sky, I would have let you go after 3 months, after 2 months, after the first month if you'd asked." The 6-month deadline was arbitrary. The moment you stopped being terrified and started being angry, the moment you showed strength instead of just survival instinct, I knew I couldn't keep you caged. Not really. Sky stared at him. "You would have let me go. Any time. If you'd demanded it, yes. If you'd fought hard enough, pushed back enough, refused to accept the situation, I would have found a way to release you safely. The blackmail, the threats, they worked because you chose to accept them rather than fight them. But I was watching, waiting to see if you'd call my bluff. I don't know whether to be angry or touched. Be neither. Be aware that even in that cage, you had more power than you realized. You just chose not to use it. And somewhere around month 3, I realized you weren't choosing to stay because of fear. You were choosing to stay because you wanted to." He pulled her closer. "That's when I fell completely in love with you. When I realized you'd chosen me freely, even within constraints. That's a very philosophical interpretation of coercion. That's the truth. I'm not claiming I was noble. I trapped you, manipulated circumstances, used fear as a tool. But Sky, you're too strong, too intelligent, too capable to be held by just threats. You stayed because part of you wanted to stay. Even when you hated it, even when you hated me, you wanted this life." Sky wanted to argue, but looking back honestly, she could see the truth. She'd had opportunities to escape, to report, to resist. She'd never taken them. Not just because of fear, but because, God help her, the flying had been extraordinary. The complexity had been challenging. The partnership with Dmitri had been exhilarating in ways her safe, legitimate career never was. I'm not sure that reflects well on either of us. It reflects that we're both complicated people who found something real in the most impossible circumstances. He kissed her softly. No more cages, Sky. No more coercion. Just choice. Every day, we choose this. Choose each other. Choose the life we're building together. What if I choose to leave tomorrow? Then I'll miss you desperately and respect your decision. That's what love is. Letting someone be free even when you desperately want them to stay. You've gotten very philosophical in your old age. I'm 38, not ancient. But he smiled. You've made me thoughtful. Made me question things I never questioned before. Made me want to be worthy of being chosen. Sky looked at this man, her former captor, her current partner, her unexpected love. He'd trapped her and freed her, broken her and helped rebuild her, forced her into darkness, and then worked with her to find light. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was messy and complicated and built on a foundation of coercion that could never be fully erased. But it was real. And it was theirs. And she'd chosen it freely, in the end. I have something for you, Sky said, reaching into her flight bag. She pulled out a small box. Open it. Inside was a keychain, 2 small airplane charms intertwined. It's symbolic. 2 aircraft, 2 pilots flying together, partners in the same sky. Dmitri held it carefully, his expression soft in a way only she ever saw. I love it. I love you. I love you too. Even though you're impossible and infuriating, and you trapped me into the most complicated relationship in history. Just complicated? I was hoping for epically complicated. Don't push your luck. But she was smiling. Come on. We have a humanitarian flight to run, people counting on us, a legitimate business to operate. Look at us, respectable. He offered his arm. Shall we, partner? Shall we? Equal. She corrected him, as always. Equal, he agreed, as always. They walked to the aircraft together, pilot and partner, former criminal and former victim, 2 people who'd found freedom in the most unlikely place. Sky climbed into the cockpit, Dmitri taking the co-pilot seat beside her. As she went through pre-flight checks, she felt the familiar thrill of preparation, the anticipation of flight. The engines started with a roar. The aircraft responded perfectly to her touch. And beside her, Dmitri monitored instruments with the practiced ease of someone who understood both the technical and the transcendent aspects of flight. Ready? He asked. Always. Sky advanced the throttles, felt the Gulf Stream surge forward. Tower, this is November 74 Sky's route, requesting takeoff clearance. Sky's route, you're cleared for takeoff. Runway 27, safe flight. The aircraft lifted off smoothly, Miami falling away beneath them as they climbed into brilliant blue sky. Up here, the complications of Earth fell away. Up here, there was only flight and freedom and the endless possibilities of the horizon. Sky had spent her life believing freedom meant flying alone, unencumbered, with no one else's weight to carry. Now she understood. True freedom meant choosing who you flew with, choosing your route, choosing your partner in the sky. She'd been trapped by Dmitri Volkov, had been caged and coerced and forced into impossible choices. But somewhere in that cage, she'd found her wings. And when he'd finally opened the door, she'd chosen to stay. Not because she had to, but because she wanted to. Because the route they flew together was better than any path she could have flown alone. Where to after Guatemala? Dmitri asked, looking at the flight plan. Honduras, then home. But someday... Sky glanced at him, smiled. Someday, I want to fly around the world, all 7 continents, just to prove we can. Then we will, together, partners flying the longest route imaginable. Equals, she corrected. Equals, he agreed. And as the Gulf Stream climbed toward cruising altitude, 2 pilots who'd found each other in darkness flew together toward light, choosing their route freely, choosing each other constantly, finding freedom not in the absence of connection, but in the presence of choice. The sky stretched endlessly before them, full of possibilities and promise, and the hard-won freedom that came from choosing love over fear, partnership over solitude, and complicated truth over simple lies. Sky's route had led through darkness to find this: a partner in the sky, a love built on honesty, and the freedom that came from finally, truly choosing her own path, even if that path was flying beside the man who'd once caged her, now freed her, and loved her through it all.